one more slide is this is where we stopped in the last session, is anchoring activities. So they are a set of activities that a student can do at any time when they complete a present assignment, or it can be assigned for a short period. That is, it works like an anchor. Sometimes some students will be going at a very fast pace, and they will complete the topic or the work that have been given. So they can always be given an anchoring activity so that they are fixed to the process of learning that is happening in the class. They don't go away, or they don't go wayward or distracted. Okay. So this is anchoring activity. Okay. They can be given some journals to write or some problems to solve. So these activities may relate to specific needs or enrichment opportunities, including problems to solve or journals to write. That can also be part of a long-term project that a student is working on. Okay. So this one thing that should be careful is this: anchoring activities must be worthy of a student's time and appropriate to their learning needs. Okay, so that they must find it meaningful. So this is the final one. Differentiated instruction allows teachers to have given some benefits of differentiated instruction. That is to add academic requirements and help students achieve success through meaningful measures. To alter the curriculum through the process of teaching, the content taught and the products created by students to represent their learning. To widen the opportunities for learning, for providing a larger spectrum of learning experiences. In a class, even though a student is not participating in a particular learning experience, the student is getting an opportunity to see another student working in a more enriching project. Okay, so in that way, they are becoming exposed to a spectrum of learning experiences. Then to become a facilitator, teacher is now becoming a facilitator, assessor of students, planner of activities rather than an instructor. So teacher is no more a sole instructor, but a facilitator. We must assess the student, we must plan the activities, and we must be resourceful. So, and this is the dictum, to be a guide on the side, right, rather than a sage on the stage. So this is what Roger Taylor has said. In differentiated instruction, a teacher is expected to be on the side of the student rather than in the center stage. Okay, so that is about differentiated instruction. If you have something to share with me or ask something, you can do that. Or we will pass on to the next session or next topic, that is problem-based learning. If you want an interaction now, we can do that, or we can have that at the last, towards the end. What do you say, participants?
Towards end, madam.
End, madam. Okay, thank you.
Hello. Hello, madam. Good evening.
Yes, I'll share the next slide. I hope this is visible. Problem-based learning in a system.
Yes, madam, visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Yeah, this is problem-based learning. So we are familiar with problem-based learning because we have projects, be it curriculum, and even the school curriculum is based on constructivism, and we are familiar with practicum and problem-based learning. Now, problem-based learning, it is one of the best exemplar of constructivism, and we know constructivism is on how we come to understand or know things. So how we generate knowledge, how we construct knowledge. Okay. Now, three primary propositions of constructivism is, I'm just reminding you things. Knowledge is in our interactions with them. It is inherent in us. Nobody is coming and giving us knowledge. It is there within us. This is what the constructivism believes in. So we have knowledge within us. Only thing is that we are allowing that understanding to manifest. Okay. And the second thing is cognitive conflicts or puzzlements is a stimulus for learning, and it determines the organization and nature of what is learned. Now, these are things that we should reflect upon. We will have to create a conflict in the mind of the learner. In constructivist learning environment, we actually create a conflict in them. We actually puzzle them. We'll have to create very genuine doubts in them. Only then they will search for understanding, that they will search for knowledge. So this is the second proposition. And the third one is knowledge evolves through social negotiation and through the evaluation of the viability of the individual understandings. Okay. So just keep these things in your mind. Social, the terms, understanding is inherent in us. It is there whenever we interact with our environment, we are understanding things. Cognitive conflicts are needed, puzzlement, social negotiation, and viability. See, facts are facts because that is being commonly accepted. Okay. Once we believed that the earth is flat, and that was a fact then. Then after some time, uh, we understood that the earth is round and it is going around the sun. Before we believe that the sun is going around us. Okay, but now we know that earth is going around the sun. So this is the fact has changed. Okay, and it is through social negotiation that this change in fact has changed. So any fact can be questioned at any time, and new knowledge can be constructed. Okay. So this is the basic process of constructivism. Now I'll just have expanded each of these propositions. One is knowledge is an inherent in our interactions with the environment. This is the core concept of constructivism. See, we cannot talk about what is learned separately from how it is learned. If a variety of experiences all lead to the same understanding. Okay, so you have lot of experiences. We have lot of experiences, and we have learned many things. And what I know can never be separated from how I learned that. Okay, and all those learnings are part of the experience that I've got. Okay, and sometimes many experience lead to the same understanding. So, and what we understand is a function of the content, the context, the activities of the learner, and most importantly, the goals of the learner. Okay. So, if the goal of the learner is not in the right direction, then what he or she understands may be different from what we expect them to understand. Okay. So our understanding is a function of the content, what we see, what we hear, whatever we do. Okay. So it is a content, whatever we experience, the emotions that we have, the context. Okay. A particular emotion in a particular context is meaningful. You're angry in a particular context. You don't get angry simply. So anger is relevant only in a particular context. Okay. You're sad because of something, because you have lost something, because somebody has hurt you. So it is in that particular context that it becomes sad. Okay. and you understand that you are sad. And your goal is now to get rid of that sadness or what is hurting you. So it is in that particular context that it is having meaning. And since understanding is an individual construction, we cannot share understandings. A teacher cannot come to the class and share his or her understanding. Teacher is coming to the class and sharing the knowledge. Whatever work she has done in her home or in the library or in the internet for creating that understanding can never be shared. That can only be created in the learner. She can simulate those situations in the classroom and make the learner go through those situations so the learner may develop those understandings. She can never share. I can say, oh, I went to this particular site. I took some information from this particular website, or I went to the local museum and collected these information. You can also go there. Okay. And it is up to them to go through those experiences and develop that understanding. Okay. So this is what we mean by understanding is inherent in our interactions with the environment. I can always guide the learner to go through the same experiences, and experience will give them understanding. And this cognition is distributed. It is not just within the individual, but it is part of the entire context. I have understood something, and then that understanding is now spreading to all the other domains of my intellect. I touched a candle fire and my hand got burned, and now I know what is burn, what's a burn, what is a heat from fire, and what if I do. So I generalize starting. Now I get a concept about what the child gets a concept about what fire is, how hot the fire can be, how devastating it can be. And after that, the child is witnessing something. A car is is on fire, or a house is on fire, and the child finds after that fire what has happened to the house. It has completely gone to ashes. So how devastating it can be. Now the mother is cooking, and mother is using controlled fire for cooking, and these are the uses of fire. Okay, so that simple concept of fire and burning the fingertip is now getting distributed to different areas, from vivid direct examples, very vicarious things. Okay, she's seeing mother in the kitchen and then seeing a terrible explosion in the television, through television. So these are all distributed. So this is one proposition of constructivism. And from constructivism, I want you to go to problem-based learning. Now, second one is cognitive conflict of puzzlement. It is a stimulus for learning and determines the organization and nature of what is learned. Okay, the base of all learning is cognitive conflict. Without cognitive conflict, nobody can proceed with learning. Everybody might have gone through some kind of cognitive conflict. Okay. Only thing is that we are not aware of the cognitive conflict. Only thing is that we are not aware of the cognitive. Nobody has brought out the cognitive conflict. We have been taught nursery rhymes, so many different kinds of nursery rhymes. So we were taught Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's houses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty together again. And the picture that we get in a nursery rhyme is that of a bald person sitting on top of a wall. And the child is made to imagine that it is this ball-shaped person who fell down and broken to pieces. There is no conflict for the child. There is no puzzlement for the child. The child is made to learn the nursery rhyme by heart. And tomorrow, when the teacher asks, the child will simply sing Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. That is what the teacher expects. So actually, you should present a conflict. Humpty Dumpty, the background, go and search what is the background of Humpty Dumpty. Now we have technology. Humpty Dumpty was a cannon. And when there was a civil war in England, the crown attacked the civilians using this cannon. They put the cannon on top of the fort and started firing at the civilians. And at one point of time, the cannon rolled down and fell and broke. And so the civilians, the people started mocking the crowd. And everything was made in England. They have a tendency to make everything into a nursery rhyme. So even the children will start singing that. And that was the origin of that nursery rhyme. Okay, so everything should be presented as a puzzle, a conflict. Gautama Buddha, he was puzzled that why we have miseries, why are people dying, why is there sorrow? So he was bewildered, puzzled by that, and he went in search and got enlightened. So that is constructivism. Nobody taught him what Buddhism is. He developed from it, it came from within. Okay. So that is constructivism. One proposition of constructivism. The next one is knowledge evolves through social negotiation and evaluation of the viability of individual understandings. See, the social environment is critical to the development of our individual understanding as well as to the development of the body of propositions, what we call knowledge. So, society is critical. You present something, and the society definitely argues. And at the individual level, other individuals are primary mechanism for testing our understanding. You know something, you tell that to your friend or your peer or your students. The nature of constructivism allows them to question it. And you will have to give sufficient, satisfactory, logical reason for that. Okay. This is the process of developing knowledge in constructivism. And in constructivism, they encourage collaborative groups where we test our understanding and examine the understanding of others as a mechanism of enriching, interweaving, and expanding our understanding of a particular issue or phenomena. Okay, so we need these collaborative groups, we need dialogues, we need discussions, we need debates, we need arguments. Okay, only then knowledge will evolve. So this is social negotiation. So other people are the greatest source of alternative views to challenge our current views. So I am presenting a particular view, okay, and others are challenging that. They have other alternative views and they have logical reason for those views. And we enter into maybe a very constructive argument. Okay, and the most viable premise will stand. Okay, so it is through, so other people whom we call our collaborative partners in thinking or in logical reasoning or in argument actually helps us to develop concepts, actually helps us to develop knowledge. So concepts we call knowledge do not represent some ultimate truth, but they are simply more viable interpretation of our experiential world. So it need not be the truth. Okay, but that is a better interpretation of our experiential world, the understanding of which makes we make through social negotiation. Maybe the concept of God or the concept of seasons. Okay. Now, in Kerala, we have the festival of Onam. Actually, we celebrate the coming of Mahabali. It is Vamanan, one of the avatar of Vishnu, who pushed down Mahabali, one of the ruler of Kerala, to the father, we say hell. And actually, we here celebrate uphold Mahabali, who was an Asura king. And Vamanan, whom we consider as a villain in the whole show, is the avatar of Mahavishnu. So the knowledge that we were given through the cultural tradition, to a certain extent, is wrong. Actually, we should. It is Mahavishnu is the god, and Vamanan is the avatar of Mahavishnu. So shouldn't we celebrate the coming of Mahavishnu? And Mahabali is nothing but the ego of a king. And Vamanan, who is so small, a small Brahman, he pushed the ego of Mahabali to hell. The whole thing can be viewed in a different manner. It is not literally the king who was pushed down to the Padam. It is his ego that I am the best king, I am everything. So I can do everything, I am the best. He wanted to prove that he was the best. And Vamanan, a small boy, Mahavishnu in the form of a small boy, he came He asked 3 feet of land, the king couldn't give that. And he was pushed to Padala. That is his ego that is being pushed to Padala. The whole thing, the whole knowledge has to be reconstructed. And it is only through social negotiation that we can do that. But it is very difficult sometimes to change the concepts that have been uh, uh, inbuilt in us through culture. It is very difficult to that. Only through individual or small collaborative groups we can, through social negotiation, we can change the concepts that we call knowledge. Okay. So this is the process of constructivism. We are viewing things from a different perspective. Okay, that is the essence of constructivism. So these are the 3 propositions of constructivism. Now I'll pass on to the instructional principles of constructivism. See, without this base, I cannot go to problem-based learning. So in these 8 principles, I'll just read through, and I've given detailed slides for that. Anchor all learning activities to a larger task or problem. Then support the learner in developing ownership for the overall problem or task. Design an authentic task. Design the task and the learning environment to reflect the complexity of the environment in which they should be able to function at the end of the learning. Give the learner ownership of the process used to develop a solution. Design the learning environment to support and challenge the learner's thinking. Encourage testing ideas, alternative views, and alternative contexts. Provide opportunity for and support reflection on both the content learned and the learning process. So these are the 8 instructional principles of constructivism. So when we switch over to the constructivist philosophy of teaching, we have to stick on to either of these principles. So I'll just brief each one in detail. So anchoring all learning activities to a larger task or problem means we learn in order to able to function more effectively in our world. See, this is the ultimate goal of each and every learner. We must be able to function more effectively in our world. And the marks that we give in the answer papers of the students are nothing when compared to the skills that need to live. You are giving 50 out of 50 for mathematics. How are they going to live with these 50 marks? Ultimately, that 50 marks that they earned by doing something or exhibiting or writing the knowledge in the answer paper must help them to live effectively in this world. This is what the ultimate uh, reality of life is about. The learning must have a purpose beyond that it is assigned. Okay, you assign learning tasks, and what is the purpose of that particular task? Okay, sometimes a teacher may, as a part of punishment, the teacher may ask the student to write a particular lesson or an answer 100 times. Yeah, after 3 or 4 times, the student have learned already. Then why should we write the other 95 times? Okay, so when you assign something, even if it is for a punishment or for a disciplinary purpose, it must have a purpose. Why is it assigned? And the student should be convinced about why a thing was assigned to them. The purpose of any learning activity should be individual learning activities can be of any type. The important issue is that the learner clearly perceives and accepts the relevance of the specific learning activity in relation to the complex, larger complex task. That is, I've just mentioned the theory of that. The second one that we have seen is support the learner in developing ownership of the overall problem or task. Now, in conventional instructional program, the learner is not responsible, or the learner is not owning any problem or task. It is solely the responsibility of the teacher to teach. Okay, unfortunately, the learners do not even accept the goal of the instructional program, or they simply focus on passing the test. What they aim is getting some marks, passing the examination, going to the next grade. Okay, they are not even bothered about the instructional program or even the goals or instructional objectives or specific objectives that the teacher has set in their lesson plan. So this is the plight of a conventional instructional program. Now, then here in constructivism, the the student is owning up the responsibility of learning. Okay. Design an authentic task. See, sometimes we find that the students are not interested in the task that is assigned. That is because they don't find any authenticity or the cognitive demand or the thinking required for the task. In an authentic learning environment, the cognitive demand of the task or the thinking required for completing the task is convincing for the learner. Okay. The learner is convinced that if I do this, this is the gain, or this is what I am going to benefit from that. Okay. And the learner is now intrinsically motivated to undertake the task and complete the task. So this is another requirement in constructivist learning. Design and author, they must know, we know Ausubel's meaningful verbal learning. Just like that, in constructivism, the learner should be convinced of the authenticity of the task. Okay. The teacher must be able to convince them that this is what is demanded from you. You must think it this lines. Only if you think in this direction, you will end up with this solution. And if they proceed in that manner, knowledge will be generated. Next is designing the task and the learning environment to reflect the complexity of the environment, and they should be able to function at the end of the learning. See, ultimately at the end of your learning or the learning of any child, they must be able to function in a particular manner. This is ultimately what we are trying to benefit or gain or impart to learning. So rather than simplifying the environment for the learner, we must actually encourage the learner to work in a very complex environment. Okay, because we through a lesson is giving all piece of information or knowledge. Okay, maybe you are defining in physics, you are defining something. You are defining, you are giving a formula, and they are and using that directly applying the formula, they are solving the problem. But in real life or in a very complex examination, they are asked to solve a very complex problem. They are asked to apply this in real life. And that is a very complex environment for which the learner is not prepared. So in construct, the teacher needs to design the task with the view of the end of learning in their mind. That is, ultimately, the complex environment demands the simple learning. So this is consistent with the cognitive apprenticeship model. Okay, so make the task complex rather than stressful. Normally, what we do in the classroom is we make the task so complex and fix a deadline for the student that they become stressed. Okay, first of all, the task is very complex. They do not know what to do, and they are not supplied adequate information for completing the task. And we fix a deadline, and that creates stress in the student rather than making them productive or developing use stress, we create distress in the student. Okay. So that should not be the case. The task should be complex enough, and that must create a positive stress in them, which will encourage them to work in the complex environment. And finally, the student will feel very comfortable working in a complex environment. So this is what we should make them practice. So don't simplify the environment for the learner, make it complex for the learner. Okay. And let them practice developing use stress and managing using that use stress. Use stress is positive stress that will always encourage a person to act. This is what we do in cognitive apprenticeship model or cognitive flexibility theories are practicing this. Okay. Your mind is very elastic. The more complex it becomes, you start using all your domains, your psychomotor domain, your affective domain, and your cognitive domain. You start collecting information from all the domains, put it together. Only when you are made to work in a complex environment, you will start searching for all the information from all these three domains. So make the environment complex for them instead of simplifying that. Okay. Give the owner, give the learner ownership of the process used to develop a solution. Now, a very interesting fact is that we as teachers find it very difficult to hand over the ownership of learning to our students. We want to be masters. We don't allow our students to become owners of what the knowledge that we have imparted. See, in constructivism, we are actually co-participants. The teacher and students are co-participants, they're co-learners. And teacher is not the sole authority of knowledge. And in this information processing age, we are passing through the information processing age. Knowledge is not the sole authority of any particular person. It is everywhere. The information is everywhere. You can access it from the Google, you can access it from the library, you can access it from any textbooks, you can access it from any source. And teacher is not the sole disseminator of knowledge. So it is high time that we give ownership of the learning and the learning process and the solution developed to the learner. Let them be the owner of that. Okay. But what we see is frequently teachers will give students ownership of the problem, but still they start dictating how to work on the problem. They will dictate how to process the problem. They may dictate that a particular problem solving or a critical thinking methodology is used rather than another one. And this is the content that you should be followed. Okay. So they even dictate the domains that they have to work upon, whether it is psychomotor or whether it is affective or whether it is cognitive. Okay. So it is the teacher who decides that you have to do something. So teacher is fixing up the domain. Teacher will fix up that, take the students to the library and search for knowledge. From the, they will have to come up with an assignment. Okay. So the domain is fixed there and it is fixed by the teacher. And in some problem-based learning frameworks, the problem is presented along with the learning objectives also, and the assigned readings related to the problem. See, we see all the learning objectives there, and finally, at the end of the text or end of the assignment, you even suggest reading materials. You go to this website, you refer this textbook, reference books are there, reference websites are there, and the students are asked to visit them. Okay, this is not the method expected in a constructive learning philosophy. So here the students are told to what to study, what to learn in relation to the problem. And with this pre-specification of activities, the students are not going to be engaged in authentic thinking and problem solving in that domain. So when we are giving all this, all these information, all these references are being supplied with a view of helping our student. Actually, we are preventing them from authentic learning. Okay, so give the students ownership of the process. Next is design the learning environment to support and challenge the learner's thinking. So this is called learning through scaffolds and the zone of proximal development. In the earlier session, I have detailed this. The critical goal here is to support the learner in becoming an effective worker or thinker in a particular domain. Teacher must assume the role of a consultant or a coach. Now, encourage testing ideas against alternative views and alternative contexts. The, earlier I mentioned about the festival of Onam here we have in Kerala. See, what I presented was an alternative view. Why not we celebrate the coming of Vamanan? Vamanan is the manifestation of God, one of the avataram of Mahavishnu. Okay. I don't know how people are going to take that. I may be branded, I may be labeled, I may be even called an antisocial because I am going against the norms of the society. See, for me, Mahabali is not a person to be celebrated. For me, Vamanan is good. Who is she to say that? Okay. So we must have always alternative views. We must be able to, or our mindset should be made in such a way, or it should be freed to take in alternative views or the alternative context and enter into discourses with that. Okay. And then finally, the knowledge is negotiated through a collaborative interaction with other people, okay, or in a group. So that means in constructivism, knowledge is socially negotiated. We need discussions, we need alternative views, we need arguments, okay, and counter arguments, logical searching for solutions. So encourage all these things in the classroom. And it was Paulo Freire who said we develop a culture of silence in our classroom. And that's very true. In a teacher dominated classroom, the student is not allowed to air their views. Okay. So we talked about the culture of silence, pedagogy of the oppressed. The children are oppressed, pushed down in the classroom. They are not allowed to speak. And we resist all change because of we are afraid of new things, fear of new things, vested interest. So these are the things that pull us back from progressing. Okay. So that is why he advocated conscientization. These are all connected concepts. Okay. So encourage testing ideas against alternative views and alternative contexts. The quality and depth of one's understanding can be determined only in a social environment where we can see if our understandings can accommodate the issues and views of others, and to see if there are points of view which could usefully incorporate into our understanding. Okay. So collaborative learning groups should become part of the learning environment. So that is one instructional strategy of constructivism. Now the last one, eighth one, is provide opportunity for self-reflection on both the content learned and the learning process. Okay, we must reflect on the content that we have learned. Okay. Again, I am going back to the example of Mahabali and Mahavishnu. And in the concept of Dashavadara, we believe that it is Parashuram who, when he threw the axe, that axe went and fell in the ocean and Kerala was formed. Okay. This is what we believe. Kerala was created by Lord Parashurama. And if we go to the Dashavadara, it is after the avataram of Vamanan that the avataram of Parashurama has come. And before creating Keralam, how did Vamanan did such a big atrocity to Mahabali? Mahabali was the king of Kerala. So without any reflection, we are just believing all tradition or a festival and a legend behind that and a story or an itihasa, we are just believing that. Okay. We never reflect upon that. Okay. Okay. So self-regulation and reflective thinking should be part of the constructivist process. We have to regulate ourselves, our thought processes, and it allows students to be less reactive and more proactive. See, if I speak about all these things in the public, what is going to happen is people start reacting. Hey, how can she say such a thing? And they start actually they don't dislike this concept being challenged. Okay. So in a constructivist environment, when we present an opposing view, the quality that a student or a teacher should have is perfect self-regulation. Okay. To become an independent learner, what the quality that we must have is self-regulation. And self-regulation, the process of self-regulation is explained in metacognition, that is planning, monitoring, and evaluation. Okay. And we become less reactive. We become more responsive. We respond to a situation than react to a situation. And we become more proactive. So this is the quality that is expected on the part of a teacher or a learner in a constructivist learning environment. Now we'll go to the problem-based learning, background of problem-based learning. Now, basically, we are all familiar with problem-based learning. It was a general model that was developed in medical education in 1970s. It was never a product of our teacher education or pedagogy. Okay, that developed in medical schools in 1970s, and it replaced the traditional lecture-based approach to anatomy, pharmacology, and physiology. Because teaching anatomy through lecture is absurd to a certain extent, and the medical students in this problem-based learning environment are divided into 4 or 5 groups, and they are assigned a facilitator, that is a Barrow's model. The students are then presented a problem in the form of a patient presenting symptoms. Okay, the student's task is to diagnose the patient and be able to provide a rationale for the diagnosis and recommend treatment. So this is how problem-based learning originated. Now how they work in PBL. Now, in the beginning, the student is presented with a very cold problem. They are not attached to the problem. That is what is meant by cold. The problem is cold. The student begin with the problem cold. They are not emotionally attached to the problem. They do not know what to do. They discuss the problem, generate hypotheses on whatever experience or knowledge they have, identifying relevant facts in the case and identifying learning issues. Okay, so there are no pre-specified objectives presented to students. See, that is how we see the doctors. You go to a hospital, a casualty, a doctor will be sitting there. You're going there, presenting your problems to the doctor. They don't have any pre-specified objective. They listen to you, your problems, and they enter into some kind of cognitive process, okay, and come up with a diagnosis. They try to test by asking, they are testing their diagnosis or what we call their hypothesis by asking some more questions, and they fix up the diagnosis. Okay, this is what the patient may be having, and they prescribe a medicine for 3 days. If you are not responding to that, you will have to go to the doctor again, and they will come up with a new course of treatment. So there are no pre-specified objectives like how we teachers do. We go to a class with certain pre-specified objectives, and they are presented to the students. And in the case of medical education, when the PBL started, they didn't have any pre-specified objectives. The students generate the learning issues or objectives based on their analysis of the problem. And after the sessions, the students all engage in self-directed learning. There are no assigned textbooks. The students are totally responsible for gathering the information from the available medical library and computer database resources. And particular faculty are designated to be available as consultants. Okay, so senior faculty members or doctors are assigned as consultants. They can consult with that senior faculty, or they learn through experiential learning, and the students may go to the consultants seeking information. So this is the working of a PBL. This is how PBL started working. Now we will go to the learning process, and there are different stages in a PBL learning process. So I am explaining the Barrows and Myers model. Okay, so first is starting a new class. Now we may be introducing something to the class, and we have to set the climate of the class. Classroom climate must be set, including the role of the teacher or the tutor. Okay. Now, so that is the first stage, which is common for all kinds of teaching learning situations. You are introducing and you are setting the climate. Okay. And the second stage is starting a new problem. Now, it is here that you should set the problem. Okay. Now, you bring the problem home. That is, you disclose the problem to the students. The students internalize the problem. Okay. Describe the product or the performance required. Assign task. Okay. You can assign students. So here I have given scribe one. One person will be at the blackboard or the board or whiteboard or whatever they are. Second person will be copying from the board, and third person will be a reference person. And the information that should be collected is given in red letters, that is ideas, facts, learning issues, and action plan. So these are the 4 tasks that we have to uh, uh, collect or develop upon in a problem-based learning process. One is ideas. Okay, this may involve cause, effect, and possible solutions. Second is a synthesis of information obtained through inquiry relevant to the hypothesis. They are the facts. Okay, so we usually keep a 4-column chart in the board where one student, where in the first row or in the header we'll write for the first column it is ideas, for the second column it is facts, third column it is learning issues, and the fourth column is action plan. So in the problem-based learning process, it is a what you prepare. We may call it a lesson transcript or a lesson plan. We have a 4-column chart. Okay, with these 4 ideas, facts, learning issues, and action plan as the header. And under ideas, through discussion, you can write what are the ideas, that is, what is the cause of the problem, what is the effect of the problem, and what may be the possible solutions. And the facts, you can write, one student will be made to write synthesis of information obtained through inquiry relevant to the hypothesis. Third is the learning issues. Students may list what they need to know to complete the problem task. They may not be having the adequate information to proceed with the learning. So teacher can supply, or the teacher may encourage them to refer the library or the consult an external person. They don't know about organic farming. Okay, so they are going to start, for example, they are going to start organic farming in the school. The teacher doesn't know anything about organic farming, nor does the students. So in that, the learning issue is gathering information regarding how to proceed with organic farming. So then definitely they will have to consult with an expert in the field. Okay, and then the 4th column is action plan. Okay, so there we list down what things are to be done to complete the problem task. They will have to go out, visit an organic farm, have a series of interviews with the farmers there. What are the type of manure that they use? Do they use any fertilizers, if at all? What kind of fertilizers are they using? Is it chemical? Okay. So why are they not using any chemical pesticides? Instead of chemical pesticides, what kind of pesticides are they using? So all this come under the action plan. So this is the assigned task under when you proceed with the problem. And these are all tabulated with the 4 columns in a board. And the 5th stage is reasoning through the problem. Now, what are you going to do with these 4 columns in your plan? Okay, so you have ideas. What are you going to do with the ideas? Synthesize and resynthesize them. You have facts. Identify or justify the facts. Then you have learning issues. Then finally you formulate action plan. So these are the things that you should do when you are going reasoning through the problem. And the next one is 6th one is commitment to a probable outcome. Then we have learning issue shaping or assignment. So see, the students are now proceeding with organic farming, and they have started farming cucumbers. Okay, the first thing that happens to cucumber is as they sprout and as they come up with the tendrils and the leaves, the flies come and start eating the juicy leaves. What is to be done with that? So learning issues starts forming, and we have to now find probable solutions for that. So we have to safeguard the plant from pests. Okay, what is to be done? So now the problem is being specified to a particular issue. Okay, and for that we have to identify resources. Okay. How can you prepare pesticides naturally to kill these pests? What are the specific pests that are attacking this particular cucumber plant? So you have to find out the resource and then schedule the follow-up. The next step is problem follow-up. So resources used and a critic. You have to criticize the resources used. You see, one student is coming up with a solution that we'll spray Coca-Cola on the plants. Okay. That is usually used for killing that mealy bugs. Okay, we can get rid of mealy bugs from some plants using by spraying Coca-Cola. I usually do that, and it's very effective also, and it doesn't create any problem to the environment also. Don't drink Coca-Cola, you can use it for that purpose. Then like that, they come with very critical resources. Then second one is reassess the problem. How can you, whatever you have written in the 4 columns in the board will have to be reassessed in the context of solving the problem. Now you are looking at the 4 columns in a different perspective, whether it is suitable for solving the problem. And next stage is performance presentation. Periodically, the students and teacher meet to present their performance. Okay, they will have to come up with a review, or they will have to come up with suggestions. And there is a lot of social negotiation going on in the classroom when a person is presenting their performance. They'll have to, usually that is what we do. Even for PhD, we have meetings, review meetings. The student will be coming up with whatever they have done. And the doctoral committee and the teachers, the other research scholars will be sitting and discussing on that. You have done this, you must do this, this will be better. So your performance will be presented and assessed, okay, periodically. And the last one is after conclusion of problem, knowledge abstraction summary must be there, which will end up with definitions, diagrams, lists, then abstractions and principles. Then we must have a self-evaluation followed by comments from groups. Okay, so your colleagues or your peers will be giving you good feedback. Okay, so reasoning through the problem, digging out information using good resources, assisting the group with tasks, gaining or refining knowledge. These are all done during the conclusion session of the problem. Now, so that's whatever I have given in the previous 3 slides is the technique of problem-based learning. Now, the problem-based learning process is explained by, this is in our class, in our situation, in our pedagogy, in our classroom situation. It is after a self-directed learning, the students meet again. They begin by evaluating resources, what was most useful and what was not useful. Okay, so this is an essential component in a problem-based learning. So all the resources are now evaluated. Whether that particular resources may be persons, maybe books or library or museum or whatever primary or secondary sources from you collected information, or that can be any activity or action that you have planned. So all these are being evaluated, and you list which was useful and which was not useful. And then they begin by working on the problem with this new level of understanding. Okay, now this is what we do in a presentation, periodic performance presentation. They go back to the problem with this new understanding, and then they start working on the problem. Now, this cycle will repeat any number of times. Okay, as long as the student is satisfied with that, we can proceed with the cycle. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
You are audible.
Yes, madam. Audible.
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam. Audible.
Possible, please highlight the important problem-based learning technique.
Yes, ma'am. Audible.
Should I go back to the slide?
No, madam. No, madam.
Problem based. So this is the first one. Starting a new class. It is introduction and climate setting. Okay. In problem based learning, first you have set the classroom climate for that. Okay. Next stage is starting a new problem. Okay. Set the problem. Make the problem familiar to the students. The students will have to internalize the problem. Okay. See, internalizing is taking it to your heart. Okay. You're not understanding the problem with your head or cognitively taking in the problem. You're internalizing the problem. Usually, there is the phrase "learn by heart" is applicable here. We have understood mistakenly using that phrase "learning by heart." So we have been associating learning by heart, the phrase learning by heart, to rote memorization. No, it's not like that. Learning by heart means you internalize that. You're taking it to your heart. You don't forget it. Okay. Somehow, somewhere, we lost the meaning of learning by heart. Learning by head is just understand that. You may forget it. Okay, that result in rote learning. But learning by heart, you are loving that. You are learning that in your affective domain. Okay, affective domain is full of emotions and feelings. And when you learn something in the affective domain, you are attaching that to your feelings and you don't forget it. So that is the meaning of learning by heart. And here, you're bringing the problem home. That means you're making the students internalize the problem. They have to feel the problem. And next one is describe the product or what is required from the student, the performance required from the student. And the next fourth one is assign tasks. You can assign tasks to individual students. Okay. And that is what I said. In a board, you can write you can draw a 4 columns in a board. And the header of the table is first column should be having the header ideas. Second one is fact. Third one is learning issues. And fourth one, when you take the notes of that, you just draw a 4 column table. And on top of the first one, you write ideas. Second one, you write facts. Third one, you write learning issues. And fourth one, action plan. So what is the idea or what is the cause? What is the effect? So what is the possible solution? That is the first column. Second is the fact. Okay. All the information, exactly like how we write the lesson plan. Whatever information that we have collected through inquiry relevant to the hypothesis is being written down in the second column. And in the third one, it is a learning issue. What is a problem? What is a task that should be? And what is your action plan? How are you going to proceed with the solution of the problem? So this is the first stage, the second stage, sorry. And the third stage is problem follow-up. That is where you come back together, reassess all these 4 things: ideas, facts, learning issues, and action plan. And if there should be some change in your action plan, you must do that change. If you have to add some ideas, you'll have to add some ideas. If you have to reword the learning issue, sometimes the problem as such should be reworded. That should be done. So whatever changes should be done must be done during the problem follow-up stage. Okay. And next is again the performance presentation. The student along with the teacher will present the performance. Okay. And the performance is assessed. And finally, it is the conclusion of the problem. So these are the different stages in problem-based learning process. And this is the slide that from where I went back.
Madam, you were telling about assessment.
Yes, I'm coming to assessment. Assessment is the end process in terms of which is a process of peer and self-evaluation. See, in problem-based learning, we don't proceed with a formal kind of assessment. Okay, it is a kind of self-evaluation that we follow in problem-based. That is what we did in the third stage, that is performance uh, presentation. There you are evaluating yourself, your peers will evaluate you, and even your teacher, who is a coach, will evaluate you. Okay, so peer and self-evaluation is the mode of assessment in PBL. Okay, there is no the conventional kind of examinations. And see, in medical school curriculum, that is where they started the PBL method. They had no tests, no examinations. So that is what I am trying to convey in the slide. There are no tests in the medical school curriculum. The assessment includes self and peer evaluation with suggestions for improvement in 3 areas: self-directed learning, problem solving, skills as group members. So these are the 3 areas where you should improve upon. Okay. Nobody is going to come and test, give you an examination and assign some marks for correct answer paper and assign marks like that. So that is not the method of assessment in PBL. Now, if we go to the learning goals of PBL, the entire problem solving process is designed as hypothetical deductive problem solving model. We know the hypothetical deductive model Piaget has given about the hypothetical deductive model. That is, you formulate hypothesis and apply deductive logic and arrive at the solution. Or it is more of a cognitive apprenticeship environment with scaffolding. You are like the student is like an apprentice, okay, working along with the teacher. Okay, teacher is a more experienced person in the environment. This is what the social constructivist model says. Teacher is the more experienced adult in the environment. Okay, and the student is an apprentice. And the teacher provides necessary scaffolds for supporting the learner and developing their metacognitive skills. And developing metacognitive skills is very important for PBL. And the 3 important metacognitive skills are planning, monitoring, and evaluating. Okay. So, we are familiar with metacognition, reflection in action, reflection on action, and even reflection for action. All these activities are part of our metacognition. And these 3 skills, how we plan, how we monitor, how we evaluate. Okay, that is a fundamental key aspect of PBL. Now, how will we generate problem in PBL? Yeah. There are 2 guiding factors in developing problems. Now, first one is the problem must be real. Okay, you just cannot proceed with cooked up problems or imaginary problems. The students, if they have to internalize the problem or feel the problem, that should be real. Okay, that is one guiding factor for developing a problem. And the other one is problem must raise the concepts and principles relevant to the relevant domain. Okay. Sometimes that will be your cognitive domain or psychomotor domain or affective domain. So whatever is related to those concepts and whatever principles are necessary for that particular domain must be raised or must be kindled by the problem. Okay. So these are the only 2 factors which guide in the development of a problem. So another 3 reasons why problems, see, I said problems must be real. So the 3 reasons why we say the problem should be real are: the students are open to explore all dimensions of the problem. Okay, this is really difficult of creating. If the problem is not real, then the students will not be able to explore the dimensions of the problem. Okay. So real problems even we know when we engage in problem-based learning, if, for example, your research, most of you might be doing your PhD work or might have completed your PhD, and the more real your problem was or is, the more comfortable you are with your solution of the problem. If your guide has given you a problem and you're working upon the problem someone else has designed for you, then it will be definitely difficult for you to proceed with the problem. Now, if the student or the research scholar has developed the problem based on their experiences, or if the problem is based on their experiential learning, that will be much more appealing to the students. So, and the problem and the student will be more eager to know the outcome of the problem. Okay, they are much more eager if the problem is real. Okay, otherwise, if the teacher comes up with a fake problem or a cooked up problem, or a teacher is designing a problem and assigning it to the student, then it will be difficult for the student to proceed with working on the problem. That is why problem generation is very important. And the next one is problem presentation. How to present this problem. Even in our for a PhD work or research work, how you present the problem is very important. Okay. How you word the problem. Okay. The wording of the problem or the problem presentation is very important. So here also there are two critical issues. If the students are to engage in authentic problem, then they must own the problem. That is what I said before. They should come up with a problem, they should word it, and it should be their problem. There should be some personal relevance in the problem. And the teachers must have an open mind to accept the problem. So, data present do not highlight the critical factors in the case. If the data doesn't present highlight the critical factors in the case, then the problem presentation will be ineffective. That how you word that wording or that heading should present the critical factor that is there in the problem. Okay, that is why even for your PhD also the titling is very important. The title, how you word the title, that is very important. And what is the facilitator's role? Now, teacher is the facilitator. Tutoring is the teaching skill central to problem-based learning. The basic method that we use is tutoring. So, teacher needs to develop facilitatory teaching skills that is different from whatever teaching skills that we have in the traditional classroom. So, time is running out. I'll pass on to the how we assess the PBL. See, PBL, as you have seen, is not a traditional kind of learning, and you just cannot apply norm reference assessment there. So we have two types of assessment, norm reference assessment and criterion reference assessment. As you are familiar with norm reference assessment, we go for the traditional examination, marks, and based on the marks, you are trying to categorize the students. Okay. But in PBL, how are you going to do that? We cannot do that. So it is criterion reference assessment. Okay. And one of the best methods that can be used in PBL is to use rubrics. Okay. Now, what is a rubric? Rubric is a scoring scale used to assess students' performance along a particular continuous criteria. Okay. It explains to students a standard against which their work will be judged. How are you going to judge that? And what are the standards that you use there? With key criteria made explicit, the students can use the information to develop, revise, and judge their own work. So now we'll see the elements in the rubric. There will be aspects of quality. So you're familiar with rubrics. And in rubrics, we have rows and columns. Okay. And in the row or in the horizontal row, we have aspects of quality. And we say good, excellent, bad, poor, like that. It's the quality. So that is given in rows. Rows of a rubric list the aspects of quality that are important in reaching the goal of the project. And in columns, we have levels of mastery. Okay. In column, we have levels of mastery. Then it is the continuation of the same slide. And in C, we have column and row. And we have each cell. We have a vertical column and a perpendicular row. And we have each cell. In each cell, we describe the quality of that particular cell. Okay. So if the student read all the information in the poor, good, or excellent columns, they have a clear concept of the standard of work that they should strive to attain. Okay. So if they read whatever is given under excellent, they know what is the ceiling. This is how I should perform. And this is what I should do to get an excellent grading. So from the rubric, the student get an idea about how to perform. Sorry. Excuse me. So, using a rubric, teachers are now very familiar with rubric, and we are all using rubrics for evaluating the teaching practice. So, there are two types of rubrics: analytical versus holistic rubric. Okay, analytical rubric defines performance standard for each criteria, whereas holistic rubric, they just say whether it is excellent, good, or bad. Okay. So you can choose which rubric that you have to use. Yeah. Finding it difficult to Okay, I'm having a very bad cold and my throat is now disturbing me. See, these are the steps in constructing a rubric. Okay. There are 5 questions that you have to ask for construct. Anybody can construct a rubric. You have to ask 5 questions. That is, what criteria or essential aspects of quality must be presented in students' work? So you are going to evaluate a particular work. What are the criteria that should be evaluated? Okay. So, for example, we are going to evaluate. Let us start from what we are familiar with. You are evaluating the teaching practice. What are the criteria that should be evaluated? This is what we give in rows, in the top row. Okay. So you may want to know how the student has proceeded with the lesson plan, how they have prepared the teaching aids, how they have was it excellent, good, bad, like that, and how did they introduce the lesson, how was the content transacted, what was the philosophy that they followed in the classroom, how was the questioning session, what was the evaluation like, did the students respond to that, like that. You may be having different criteria that must be asked or that must be evaluated. Okay, and these criteria should be graded accordingly, whether it is poor to good. Okay, so this is from poor to good or excellent is your evaluation or rating. Then how many levels of mastery do you wish to illustrate for students? and this should be in your column. Okay, and you label that. Okay, that is what I said just now, from poor to excellent. So that is the level of mastery. Now, for lesson planning, you, in the first cell, you may be writing that you are describing that certain characteristic features which will enable you to rate that particular lesson planning procedure as poor. Okay, the student has not worked on the resource materials, or like whatever be that. Okay, lesson planning was very brief, or whatever be that. You are describing that in the first cell. Like that, all the 5 cells from poor to excellent is being filled by, it is described. Whatever you expect from the student is described there. Anybody can, you need not wait for somebody to do that and give it to us. We can create our own rubric. So like that, all these 5, first one is what criteria are essential aspects of quality must be presented in the student's work to ensure that it is high in quality. So include all those elements in the rows of your rubric. Second is how many levels of mastery do I wish to illustrate for students? So how many rows? That will be in your columns. Okay. So if you want 5 levels of mastery, poor, very poor, poor, average, good, excellent. So there are 5 levels of mastery. That will be in your columns. Now for each criterion or essential aspect of quality, what is a clear description of performance of each mastery level? So include all these description in the appropriate cell in the rubric. Now what rating scheme will I use in the rubric? And add this to the rubric in a way that it is in tune with your grading philosophy. Okay, suppose if your grading is from 0 to 1, you can do that. If it is from 0 to 5, it can be like that, or it is from 1 to 5, it can be like that, depending on your grading philosophy. Or you can use percentages, 10%, 25%, 50%, like that. If it is an average, you can give 50% like that. So what is your personal grading philosophy? You can use that. It is not a marking system. It is a grading system. Or you can even go through letter grading, A, B, C, D, E, like that. Okay. So excellent will come with D or E or whatever be that. So you can either use numbers, or you can use percentages, or you can even use letter grading. I prefer letter grading. Okay. Letters with a positive sign, a plus sign on top of that. Okay. So that everybody will be having an A with a different number of plus signs over that. Okay. So otherwise, again, that will be a kind of discrimination. Somebody will be having a C grade. They will attach to A plus, A plus plus, like that. So then you are actually using your rubric. And once you start using the rubric, you will know when to revise this rubric accordingly. Now, sometimes you are coming up with a student who is excellent in performance. And in your rubrics, there is no cell to fix that student somewhere. So you'll have to revise the rubric accordingly. So this is how you proceed with problem-based assessment. Okay. So